battle for the night attack, his clothes and accoutrements on, bayonet fixed, musket loaded and laying by his side. The night was cold, windy, and rainy, and large fires were kept burning all night for the comfort of the troops. The prophet's plan for battle called for the warriors to creep through the marsh and along the creek, now known as Burnett's Creek, to assume position and wait for the signal to rush the camp. A select group of warriors were to sneak into camp and kill William Henry Harrison, who would be riding a light-colored horse. The prophet said when Harrison was dead, the others would easily be killed or simply run away. Two redcoats in Prophetstown suggested the prophet wait until daylight rather than midnight to attack. The prophet chanted and cast a spell that would turn all the white man's bullets into dust, so as not to harm the Native Americans. Approximately 4:15 a.m., a shot fired by a sentry in the direction of some rustling leaves found its mark. When the Native American cried out, neither side was ready for a battle. The first notice of trouble appeared on the left flank with the yells of the warriors and the hasty retreat of the sentries back to camp without firing a shot. In less than a minute, the Native Americans began charging the northwest corner furiously and shooting a great many rifle balls into the campfires. The 4th U.S. Regiment, under Captain Barton and a company of mounted Kentucky riflemen under Captain Geiger, received the first attack. The Indians broke through the lines, making their way into the camp. Captain Geiger's company of militia stationed near Sergeant Orr were in great confusion. They could hardly be distinguished from the Indians. One Indian was killed in the back part of Captain Geiger's tent while attempting to tomahawk the captain. The few who made it into the camp were soon killed and the lines closed. The fire upon Geiger's company was excessively severe, and they suffered considerably before relief could be brought to them. In the confusion, Harrison mounted a dark horse instead of his gray mare. His aide, Colonel Owen, rode a white horse and was immediately shot dead. Harrison rode to the scene of the first attack, and upon seeing Barton's company suffering and the left of Geiger's entirely broken, he ordered Captain Cook's and Captain Paul Wentworth's companies under Lieutenant Peters to be brought to the support of Barton and Geiger. The morning was dark and cloudy. The fires afforded a partial light, which, if it gave Harrison's men some opportunity of taking their positions, was more advantageous to the enemy, affording them the means of taking a surer aim. They were therefore extinguished as soon as possible. The first attack was followed with a second attack at the head of the right. At the foot of the ridge in front of Captains Whitney and Bain companies, there were a few trees, behind which there were a number of Indians. A constant fire was kept burning for some time between the two companies and those Indians. Captain Robb's company of riflemen were then either driven or mistakenly ordered from their position on the left flank to the center of the camp. Both Lieutenant Larrabee and Lieutenant Hawkins, judging it better to attack than remain targets, requested Major Floyd's permission to attack, but were denied for fear of exposing the company's line and angle to the enemy. Harrison found Major Davies forming his dragoons at the rear of the companies now under attack. The heaviest part of the enemy's fire came from some trees about 15 or 20 paces in front of the companies. Harrison ordered Major Davies to charge the Indians from the front. Unfortunately, the Major's gallantry and use of too few men enabled the enemy to avoid him in front and attack his flanks. In the charge, the Major received a mortal wound. Colonel White was killed, one other dragoon was wounded, and the party returned without accomplishing its objective. Captains Snelling and Prescott were replaced with dragoons and ordered from this wing to support the line across the head of the camp. Captain Snelling charged and dislodged a body of Indians in that direction. In the course of a few minutes since the beginning of the attack, the fire had spread along the left flank and across the entire front, then spread up the right flank and part of the rear line. It was finally stopped when it was upon Spencer's mounted riflemen and to the right of Captain Warwick's company, which was posted on the right of the rear line. Captain Spencer and his first and second lieutenants were killed, and Captain Warwick mortally wounded. Spencer's company suffered severely, having had to cover a large section of the camp. Ensign John Tipton, the highest-ranking officer of the Yellow Jackets still alive, took command. Harrison sent Robb's company of riflemen to reinforce and stabilize the line. Companies commanded by Cook and Bain were ordered by Harrison to reinforce the right flank, foreseeing that at these points the enemy would make their last efforts. Major Wells, commanding on the left flank but not knowing Harrison's intentions, had taken these companies and charged the enemy before Harrison had formed the body of dragoons. He had meant to support the infantry, a small detachment of which were ready and proved amply sufficient. The Indians were driven back by the infantry at bayonet point. The dragoons pursued and forced them into a marsh where they could not be followed. Captain Cook and Lieutenant Larrabee were ordered to support the rear line, but on arrival saw that the Indians had gained ground upon Spencer's company. Larrabee, now the senior officer, commanded and formed the companies, charging the Indians, killing 5 and putting the rest to flight. Daylight was breaking, and almost 2 hours had passed since the first shot sounded. The Indians had retreated across the marsh to Prophetstown. As this retreat became evident, an almost deafening and universal shout was raised. Huzzah! Huzzah! Huzzah!